Black people are part of the Democratic Party just by default. It's like
Right.
you want, like in the 60s, she makes a point that in the 60s it was very important for black people to be politically engaged, and you had
Mm-hmm.
two options. You had one who was racist, and he had another one who was racist, but one who was less racist and didn't wear sheets. And that's who you tied your party to. Because you have to think of it, and I think boomers look at it this way: you're gonna have a little racism in any party. So we're just going with the Democrats. That's literally, you get what I'm saying? Like, think of, you got to think back of before, the last 50 years, where there was a little bit of just accepting, acknowledging that there's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be racism here, and I just have to go with the people who's a little bit less racist. But it feels like black boomers don't understand they don't have to remain there. Like, you don't have to remain in that mindset anymore, but they do. So I guess the question I'm asking, because I guess I'll wrap it up into a question, is that, do you believe, I believe that since civil rights right now is very important for black people to be politically engaged. So, but do you believe that need to be politically engaged because of what's, everything that's happening? Believe that need to be politically engaged is going to bring more black people to the Democratic Party or push them away? So that's the question I have. I'll start with you, Nick.
So
Black people are engaged. Let me just say this part: black people get more engaged when it's necessary. Anybody, not just black people. In the 60s was one, and now it's because of what's happening. So the question is, I'm just repeating the question: do you think the need for black people to be politically engaged, meaning bringing more people into the system, you think is going to go a bad way, meaning going to the Democratic Party, or you think they're going to wake up and be more like us, like people who are left thinking like us?
I shared a story before on one of our shows how I had a conversation with my sister because anyone know I'm in politics now. I'm a writer, commentator. So I remember she told me before I didn't care about politics. I never care about following politics because I know they didn't give a fuck about us. Like this is like the initial um this is the gut reaction that a lot of black people have, like otherwise anti. That's why I use the term otherwise anti-establishment when I was talking about the black churches who funnel otherwise anti-establishment black people, because without that funneling mechanism, there is a mistrust. Without that propaganda
Mhm.
being injected to people, there's a mistrust. Now, what she did tell me, despite the fact that she was never interested in politics, she became interested in learning more about our community and learning more about history after watching some of my shows, seeing what I talk about, because I talk about building community, I talk about building mutual aid, I talk about literally other ways you can improve the quality of our life outside of trusting a politician. And my sister, I shared this story before. My sister said that actually interested me. Like the whole concept of building community, like make sure you help feed your neighbors, mutual aid. Like once you learn what that was, she like, I never heard this stuff before, but I like that. She hates DC politics, but she likes that. So to answer your question directly, when you say black people engaged, you got to define what that means. If you want to get them engaged in neoliberal electoral politics, you are wasting their time. But if you want to educate and bring people and teach them about mutual aid, I once again, I'm not pretending I've been this crazy long time lefty, guys. This is something I've been learning about over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, maybe. And then as I explain this to people I know, they like, oh shit, I didn't know about building community and mutual aid, and they didn't know about it, and they get interested into that. And this is a whole chain of events that can start building a movement, which is why that clip you played earlier is so problematic. And this is why I said earlier, when they were talking about other alternatives for black people, they were like, dude, should we vote Democrat or Republican? No talk about what I just mentioned. Why?
Mhm.
Why? That should be the number one central theme. So, if you do all that stuff and then you want to vote for some politicians, I don't agree, but that should always come first. I'm not gonna get mad at you for voting for whatever if you're engaging your community, help improve people's lives. But people take that part first. People take and they have it opposite. They have electoral politics first, and then they do activism to fill the gaps. oh, we can't get voting rights, so we got to
Right.
do activism to fill the gap.
Backwards.
It should be the exact opposite. You should
Backwards.
do the direct action and then the electoral politics to fill in the gaps on whatever you can't get through direct action. That's how it should be. But I'll pass it back to the panel because I can discuss this all day. So
I'm gonna go to the Bank Sisters, but that is a great point. It's one that was illustrated when I went on the show with Jen. I remember she was saying, like, because it was I was just saying, like, I'm just not that interested in electoral politics and back and forth. Oh, no, direct action and both, and I'm like, well, here's the problem. You're saying you're for both, but 90% of your conversation is about electoral politics. Where's the other part? Where's the other thing? And this is the problem. Electoral politics literally happens every so often, like every 4 years for the presidency, every 4 years for other offices. So what is happening in between? We're just choosing to say we're going to stay in this struggling state until the next election. Like, that is what we have to get out of. And it's all tied together, but this is why wages have to be suppressed, because if you have people working 50, 60 hours a week, they don't have time to participate. They don't have time to fact check. They're just going to go, whatever CNN says, that's what I'm going to go with. That's all the time I have. So that is very, very key to keeping the duopoly in place, is keeping wages down. Like, I can't see any other item that's singularly important to keeping a duopoly in place is keeping people from being able to study what's happening, to be engaged politically, to do their own research. They just have to go off of the corporate-owned stations that they have, spilling the same nonsense. So anybody who wants to comment on that, or any part that Nick said, I'll bring in the Bank Sisters. Go ahead.
We're a perfect example of exactly what you're talking about. I mean, with the pandemic too, I think a lot of people have had time to, maybe do a little bit more research or whatever it is. And for us, we were fortunate enough to have the time to make a channel. And so it's also being able to have the time to communicate with each other too, which they don't want us to do, which is another reason why they want us grinding down, just grinding in this cog in this machine. Yeah. For sure.
Exactly.
And I think there's a piece to it too of, just Black people just constantly living in fear. I think people, as much as like, there's a lot of messaging, if you look on Instagram, pushing Black people to take all of these risks financially, like start your own business, do this, do that, but there's no push to take a risk and say like, okay, you know what, let's all band together and we're all going to write in a candidate. We're all going to vote for, but we're all going to, we're going to do something together. It's really easy because obviously finances are hugely important and there is no economic plan for us. So it's very easy to get people like, all of their time and energy is sucked into, how they're going to make money. Where if we could get them to focus on how can we get someone in there who can help us so that we don't have to be worried about this and make some money. But fear is killing us. I mean, and just like a lack of imagination, I guess, too.
Well, the fear is what I think, like, to answer your question, what I think is going to happen. I think people are going to get really excited. And I think that they're still going to vote for Democrats. And I think the Democrats are going to lose for the midterms at the very least. I'm not 2024 probably. Yeah, but the thing that bothers me is that it came up even in what in that clip that we watched. But Mark Lamont Hill, saying he's being in the Green Party for that long. I feel like nobody, as you were saying, why is nobody just saying, okay, we've seen enough.
Right.
We're done. We're taking everything out. Come find us. Like, okay? Where is that?
It was almost the same. It was the same interview probably that she also did on Rising and did on whatever else she went on. You know what I'm saying? Like the same set of questions for sure. Like,
I'm just saying, like, it needs to come to a point where we have people feel like if they don't invest in that Democratic Party, if they don't give that vote, that, they're still going to have their Blackness. They're still going to have their community. They're still going to have, because that's a big part of it, And I think if we could create something like that, or at least with communication, let people know that there are more people out there that think the same way. I mean, because we're out here in, rural area where there are not a lot of Black people. So it's nice to be able to connect with other people that we know feel the same. Because if you lived here and you didn't have the internet or whatever, you'd be like, well, I guess I'm just, you could be convinced to vote for anybody. So we have tools there, but I think fear is, what Keisha said is really
Mhm.
leading it. And I think that community, if we could build it, could save it, but I don't see it happening that fast. What you guys are doing is helping them.
You guys are helping, yes.